guys. Well, for one thing, the weather was 57 to 67, so that was good. But ministry-wise, I mean, we were able to get to minister at a place that focused on dementia patients. And so that just to see how they responded to the girls, and the girls, of course, responding to them. On Friday night, we were at Teen Challenge, which is a drug rehab place that men go to for about 9 months to a year. And to see how the stories and the songs that the girls sung just hit them all right here. And they were crying, and they were just laughing and enjoying, and really, really being touched by God's power through what the girls did. Sunday, homeless shelters. Sunday morning, we were at the Kroc Center for the Salvation Army. And it was right in the middle of the Tenderloin District, which is the toughest area of San Francisco. And from the second song, there was a young lady on the fourth row, and she's probably early 20s, and she leaned over to her friend, and she goes, "I'm going to start crying." You know, and everybody, just men and women alike throughout the service, were just being touched by God's grace and God's power. It was phenomenal.
Now, I understand for you the highlight was driving a 15-passenger van in San Francisco.
Full of girls that were oblivious to traffic.
Yeah.
That was great. Because there's a lot of stopping in the middle of the road, and you have to squeeze in between the parked car and the car that's double parked. And that was fun.
And when Tony was describing it, it reminded me of driving in blizzards in the Midwest, and you have to pry your fingers off because you're so tense.
Intense,
So overall, a great tour.
It was a fantastic, best tour.
And how many students were with you?
We had also our largest amount on tour. We had 11 students.
Great.
So it was fantastic.
Great. And again, it happened because you make that happen through your giving. And
thank you all so much.
Good. Yeah. Thank you, Tony. Appreciate that. All right, so that's a little bit of their worship experience. Doesn't look real Lutheran, does it? What's fascinating about their worship experience is they'll have a mixture of that and then real traditional stuff. And service went 2 hours, by the way. Yeah. You in? So one of the, and then we heard that night during dinner that one of the services where their bishop went, that service went from, was it 9 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon? Something like that?
And most likely without food.
Yeah.
That entire time.
Yeah. Tell you what, we're going to do that. But if you give bigger offerings, we'll just stick to an hour. How's that sound? Let me tell you how we got to Rwanda to begin with, for those of you who are maybe new to the church. Our partnership with Rwanda started back a month before we started this church in February of 2005. Prior to that, Alicia had done some work for her master's degree on Rwanda and the genocide and things happening there, and I was her editor. And so I would edit her papers, and I was so stunned, moved by the stuff that she was writing. I said to her one day, we need to get to Rwanda. And I sense God's calling us to do something. And so in February of 2005, Alicia and I and Joe and Michelle Hallinan went to Rwanda for the very first time. The Lutheran Church at that time was very, very new. They had come in after the genocide, so they came in the mid-1990s. So when we came, the church was about 10 years old. At that point, they had 8 or 9 pastors, or up to 60-some now. And we began to enter into a relationship with a particular congregation in Nyamata, which is about 30 minutes outside of the capital, Kigali. We've also helped in building a medical clinic over there and some other things as well. So what we want to do tonight is not just give you a travel log, but we do want to show you some of the pictures of the people that you are supporting and some of the things that we did on your behalf to let the folks in Rwanda know that we love them and that we're partners with them. So this is the four of us. This is Alicia went on the trip, and Julia went on the trip with us, and Emily went on the trip. It was Emily's first time ever out of the country. And you went to Rwanda, yeah. So
Not even Mexico, I want to point out.
although she's been to Disneyland, so that was close.
Yeah, that's so close.
So we took a Delta flight. We flew to Salt Lake City, and then from Salt Lake City to Amsterdam, and then from Amsterdam down to Kigali. So we were on the planes about 21 hours and landed in Kigali and had a very nice place where we stayed. And that night we had some great pizza and some other things to get us started. So we want to just walk through. I'm going to use the picture. So Diane, you want to move to the next one? Because I don't know what's coming up next. All right. So the first place that we went, the first morning there, we went off, and I'll let Emily talk about where they went in the morning a little bit later. But we went to, what's the name of the place, the city?
City of Joy?
Yeah, what's the name of the city?
Oh,
City
they're
of Joy.
near Nyanza.
Yeah, okay, so you all know where that is. You know what I'm talking about now?
It's where the King's Palace is.
So City of Joy was started by an old friend of mine, Todd Ellingson, and his wife, Andrea. And Todd and I used to work together in another life at another church. And several years ago, Todd felt the call to go to Rwanda. So he and his wife moved there. And in about, how many years? 6, 7, 8 years, they have built a school. They have built a church. And I'm talking about buildings and then the infrastructure. And then they have a lot of property where they're growing crops and so on and so forth. And so you can move to the next picture. So we had a chance to do a couple things there. This is the school. We brought 2 suitcases full of supplies to them. And partly they came from Todd and Andrea's families, but we brought some supplies from Grace to them as well that they can use in the school. Next picture. So this is I chose this for kind of a personal reason. So we had some women in our church make dresses for girls. And one of the things they did was they made matching dresses so that one of our girls here would get a dress, and then we would give a dress that matched that to a girl in Africa. So this is the little girl, Vivian, I think is her name. She's holding a picture of my granddaughter, Clover, wearing the exact same dress. And we did this with 3 or 4 of our girls here. And you can see she's pretty cool. So one of my highlights was I just pulled her aside and very quickly just blessed her. And it was just kind of a cool little moment for her. And then they wrote letters to our girls back home. Anytime you want to jump in, Alicia, you can. So this is Todd and his family. This is all of us. The guy over on standing by Alicia, that's Pastor Muziguro, who's the pastor of the church in Nyamata that we've been supporting for the last 10 years. So that was our first day. And then Emily's got a little thing she'll talk about because she and Alicia went somewhere else first and then came and joined us. Second day.
No, we still... Oh, you forgot that we went to eat with the bishop.
Oh, that's right. Yes, we went to eat with the bishop of the Lutheran Church.
We spent time with the Lutheran Church that evening after many hours in the car.
Yeah, and it was Kigali, when you think of Africa, you don't think of real modernized cities, but this is a very modern city in the making, and so we were in a beautiful restaurant, and Rwanda is the home of 1,000 hills, so everywhere you look, it's hills, and it's just beautiful. And we had some of the best pizza we've ever had was in Kigali, right? Yeah. All right, so this is a meeting now. The second day, we drove another long day. It was the 3-hour one-way to the clinic that we have been helping to build in Mumea. This guy that we're standing next to is the mayor of that community. And we wanted to meet with him because we have, as a congregation, committed to bringing medical equipment, not supplies, but medical equipment into that clinic. And a few years ago, that was easy to do. Now it's not so easy to do. So we met with him for a few minutes to try to get his okay to really push hard to get this medical equipment in there. All the equipment is donated. We just pay the shipping, and we've raised the money to do that over the last several years. So we met with him and had a good meeting with him, and then we headed over to the clinic. And let me see which picture we have first. All right, so this is the clinic 6 years ago, okay? Next is the clinic that we saw today, 6 years later. Now, yeah, it's cool. Now, what makes this really fascinating is that the community built this. The tenancy particularly for churches, is to go in and have a wonderful plan for their lives and build things for them. And that more often than not can hurt rather than help. So Pastor John, who we've been supporting for years, went in and taught the community how to build their own medical clinic and said that the best resource in Rwanda are our people. And so not only did they build this, not only did they create the plans, they went to the Ministry of Health and raised some of the money for it. There was no road to the clinic. They had a road built. The last few feet weren't quite done yet, and our kidneys are still there, but nonetheless. And so this was amazing, and I know Julie in a little bit is going to talk about one of her things. So this is meeting, we took in 4 bags. You want to talk about that?
We had 4 bags from Project Cure. They're the same organization that will be supplying the medical equipment that we are shipping. And now, even though the community built this medical clinic, the government oversees all medical clinics. So once they built it, that's why they had to work so closely with the mayor and with the local government, because the Rwandan government oversees it. So they had to adhere to their standards. So it is run by the government. However, as you can imagine, the supplies are quite lacking. So when we went in, we gave him a list, and you could see they're not very demonstrative about their feelings, but you could see this sort of little grin, like, oh, wow, we really, really need these things. Not only that was just for 2 of the bags. He didn't realize it was double the amount that he had seen. So it was a really touching moment, especially after they had shown us what the government had shipped to them, which was a bunch of broken things sitting in a room, not doing any good. So that was a very special moment to be able to empower this. He was the head nurse. What were the hours that they worked?
Oh man, just incredible hours, right?
How many were there?
I don't remember.
Okay.
No.
I think there were maybe 10 nurses that worked
And do you
there.
remember some of the different things they did? They had a tuberculosis room. I remember that.
Yeah.
We saw there were some babies being born there.
Yeah. They do pretty much everything except for major surgery.
Yeah. And it's a very secluded area. And so people come, they walk in from wherever. And
it's only been the last year or 2 where they had running water and electricity.
Yeah. Next picture. Pastor John was one of our first contacts in Rwanda. His wife is from America. And years ago, John and Robin were sitting in our house, in our living room, and talking about Robin's plan to build a school over there in partnership with the Lutheran Church. And so we had a chance to visit her school. Again, just to see the incredible growth from 0 to a full functioning school in just a matter of several years. And one of the great things that we heard, one of the students took us around, and we said, "Why are you here?" And he said, "Because this school has a great reputation throughout all of Rwanda, and we want to be a part of that." So we've been not so much financial supporters of that particular project, but good friends with Robin and had dinner with her, and it was great to see the work that they were doing. Next picture. The last Saturday of the month, all Rwandans are required to do community service. So they shut the roads down. You can't drive unless you have a special permit from the government, and you go out and you work. And I'm going to have Alicia give you a little bit of the reason for that. But this is a picture. I want you just to notice what Julia and Emily and Alicia are doing, and what Pastor Tim is doing. I'm just saying.
I would like to point out that Emily ended up with blisters and several splinters in her hand. Julia also worked very hard.
That was from taking pictures.
No. I will admit, I think I lasted maybe 5 minutes with the hoe and I was done. But everyone else worked really hard.
Just to say where we were, we went out to Nyamata. Nyamata is the area that, again, outside of Kigali. It's the area where we have adopted a church, not adopted, we partner with them. And so we decided to go out into that community for a couple reasons. One was to do the work day. And there were 2,000 people out in our area working just all along the roads. And then they work for about an hour, and then they have a big community meeting. And they had some big shots there that day from the government to talk to the people. And we got special permission to leave early because we had another meeting, had to get special permission. But it was amazing, wasn't it? At first, we're the only ones there. And they're like Americans. They're required to be somewhere, so they stay in their houses. And then suddenly people start coming out, and you look around, and there's 2,000 people around working outside, just trying to clear up roads and so on. So what's the purpose of this?
It's called Umaganda, And it was an idea that was there during the colonial period. And then after the 1994 genocide, they decided to re-implement it. And they've used it to actually build schools and do roads, like Pastor Tim mentioned. So what we were doing was clearing off a road it's dirt, but there were tons of bushes and that type of thing. So there were other non-Rwandans there, but they were all riding around in trucks just watching. So we were the only ones out working. It did cause a little ruckus. So I don't know how hard everyone worked because they were too busy laughing at all of us. But it was a really great moment for community building, and made some friends along the way. There was a soccer team that begged to have Emily stay, a bunch of boys. Yeah. There was about 10 boys just watching her, like, oh, can she please stay? She's such a hard worker.
I got you 40 cattle for her.
Yeah. Yeah. She's such a good worker. We just really need a worker like that.
She actually broke one of the hoses.
She did actually break a hose.
Yeah.
It was pretty funny. I thought, that's probably their only tool, and she just broke it. So it was I've heard about this because they implemented it a few years after 1994, so it was just an honor to actually be able to experience it firsthand. And so they said it started at 8. We got to the little town around 8, couldn't find where we were going, asked several people, and they kept telling, oh, it's over there. Drive over there. No, it's over there. We're like, what is going on? This is very typical Rwanda. So finally we found this area, and Pastor Tim's not kidding, there were maybe 2 people actually working. And so we're like, okay, well, give us some tools. We'll start helping. And then within 20, 30 minutes, just people, seas of people all over. So, and then a big celebration because they have a national healthcare system, and they had managed to get the most amount of people signed up in that community. So they had a couple government officials out, people from the Ivory Coast were visiting, so a lot of bigwigs were out in the tents listening, so it was a really great honor to be a part of that day.
So the reason why we left that was we went to visit a site created by Prison Fellowship. Some of you may know of Prison Fellowship. It was started by Chuck Colson many, many years ago.
We do Angel Tree with them.
Yes, we do Angel Tree through Prison Fellowship. They've created throughout Rwanda reconciliation villages where they have the perpetrators of the genocide and the victims of the genocide living side by side and learning to forgive each other and learning to sit side by side. And so 2 of them, one a perpetrator and then one a survivor, told us their story and how they have worked through that. And it was pretty amazing to see, when you're talking about genocide and you're sitting next to the person who participated in that and took the lives of people that you loved and now you're neighbors and you've reconciled, there's some powerful things happening. And many times people said, unless God is in the equation, it can't happen. So that was a very moving experience for us. Next picture. So this is our church in Niamata, and this was my 4th time there. It's always a delight. A lot of kids, and next picture, they do a lot of dancing and singing. That good-looking guy in the robe is me, and Pastor Muzigura over there.
And Pastor Tim did not bring that with. Muzigura had to provide that for him.
Yeah, so there's the whole church standing outside. We did get a video of them saying hi to you, but it didn't show up very well. But they all waved their hands and said hi to you. Good, next. So then our last day, we went on a neighborhood tour. And you want to just talk about that and what it was about and the purpose?
So there's a women's co-op who basically these women came together. It's a predominantly Muslim community. Which actually was not hit as hard during the 94 genocide because most of the killings took place in Christian churches. And the Muslims actually hid people, and according to our guide, they wouldn't go in to the mosque because they thought that they had special powers. So people were actually saved in the mosques. And so the area, although it's one of the poorest areas in Kigali, was not as hard hit. So these women, Christian and Muslim, have come together. They decided we're going to teach each other how to read. We're going to come together and teach each other how to sew and find different ways that we can support ourselves. And they've created this amazing co-op, and now they provide these tours so that when people go and visit, they can see what actual life is like in Rwanda. And they brought us to various businesses, and they really wanted to show the entrepreneurial spirit of Rwanda and what all of these different women were doing throughout this area. So you pay for the tour, so they're able to split that among the co-op, and then they also sell things as well. But it's an educational experience to be able to take that back home with you to see what these people are doing to improve their lives.
I think we have a picture. What's the next picture, Diane? There's Emily. Anytime there was a kid around, Emily was with the kids. She's a teacher, and she was like a magnet for the little kids and did a great job. Next picture. So we actually ate a meal in a home.
So then one of the women, that one of her livelihood comes from cooking. It is and was Ramadan, so she could not participate with us because she was a Muslim woman, but she created this amazing meal that we all got to partake in. It was delicious.
Yep.
So that's how she makes her living.
Okay. And so then finally we went to an organization Alicia's been acquainted with for many, many years, Speak I'm Listening. And they started out by caring for the widows of the genocide and the orphans. Was it widows and orphans?
Yes, so widows and orphans, particularly women that had sexual violence occur during the genocide.
And so the work they did was really, really important. Alicia's been a big supporter of theirs, as we have. And we brought a lot of stuff home from them. And that was the card I gave to the kids was made by the people who are ministered to there. Okay. And then this is you can see how happy we are. We're about to get on an airplane for 24 hours. Woohoo! And we were excited to come home. It was a great 5 days. So I think I'm going to ask Julia, is that right, Diane? There we go. So Julia, just give us your highlight or a few things that you want to tell us about from your experience there.
The whole trip was phenomenal and memorable, and it was hard to pick one thing, but I think the clinic at Mumea was phenomenal just to see after a rocky, scary road trip up to that clinic because it sits high on the hill. The poverty of that village and how many people to get there have to walk miles and miles and miles, sometimes in bare feet. And so getting there, looking at this beautiful clinic that we help support was great. And then we veered away, Emily and I, away from the tour because we're attracted to kids. And we enter this room, which is one of the rooms, recovery rooms, and there were various patients, and a young lady had just had twins, and so we were admiring from afar, but the grandmother insisted, we did have Solange, who was one of our tour guides, insisted that we go ahead in, and as is customary for them, it's an honor to have their babies carried by a visitor, and because they're twins, each one of us had to switch twins at one point. And these babies were beautiful. They were just 2 days old. They were gorgeous, and it was an honor for us to hold them and spend some time with the mom. And it was just a beautiful experience. The clinic is beautiful. The people of Rwanda are beautiful, and it was an honor. And I told her to translate for us to be able to do that. And then I told our tour guide, by the way, tell her that an American mom most likely wouldn't want a stranger holding their baby. That's just not how we roll. So I appreciated that opportunity.
And then, as I mentioned, Emily, she went because she had a little mission that she wanted to accomplish, and she did our first day there. So tell us a little bit about this picture up on the screen.
Just a backstory. About 8 years ago, I was sitting right over there, and I was watching a presentation just like this that these two had gone to Rwanda, and I saw the videos and I saw the pictures, and it was then that God set my heart on fire for Africa, but for Rwanda specifically. And so about 4 years ago, I got a compassion child, and I wanted a girl from Rwanda, because I was thinking that that's a country that I might go to, hopefully. It was a far off dream, but Rwanda is what I wanted. And so I got Esther, who's standing beside me, and that's her mama and her papa, and they are just the most gracious family to ever want to meet. And they welcomed me into their home, and the father talked and just said that for 4 years they had been praying that I would come to their home and come to visit. And I had been praying for the same thing for all 4 years as well. And so it was just such a wonderful experience. And I could have spent, all week with her and just holding her and looking at her face. And they gave me the peace basket that the mom is holding, and it they're farmers, and so they something that they grow is ground nuts, little teeny tiny ground nuts. And this basket was filled with ground nuts, and so that means that they picked the pods that the ground nuts grow in it, and then emptied the ground nuts and filled that huge basket. And I learned so much from Esther and her family. And two things that I learned were they have so little. It was, as you can see, their house behind us, 4 brick walls, a mat to sleep on, benches around a little table, but they have so much faith. They have so much faith in our Father, and they're so generous, so generous. They have nothing, but what they do have, they give away, and they welcome you into their home. They give you gifts, and she sang for me, and because she's in the choir, and so it was just so good to see her and her family, and she's thriving. She, before I sponsored her, she was her grades were not good, and you could see on the chart that once she started being sponsored, her grades went up, and I got to see all her records, and she's in good health and doing well in school, and her family's good, and so it was just such a good experience, and she was overjoyed. I was overjoyed. It was just a love fest, so it was very good.
So she had her highlight the first few hours of our trip there, but every day just got better. And it was a real privilege and honor to travel with these 3. And they were all great traveling companions. We had good guides while we were there. But for all of us, it was a deep honor and privilege to represent you to our friends in Rwanda, and to constantly remind ourselves that we're not these great westernized people coming in to save them. We're there to partner with them and walk side by side with them in their mission of bringing grace to the world. And you've had a profound impact there. And people speak of you because of the clinic and the church that we support. And it's because of your generosity that we're able to help them do some things that they feel God has called them to do, but they maybe don't have the finances to do it. So it was a great privilege for us to be there. We want to say thank you for the privilege that we've had to represent you, and to say thank you on their behalf for the great things that you have done in mission and ministry. Is there anything else that you want to say, Alicia? Didn't you want to say something about all those beautiful things out there that are going to be?
I definitely did. So out there, you'll see we brought back some stuff. So the money it goes back to our Rwanda pot, because we've already paid for all of those. So any money that goes towards those items will just go back to help us continue to do missions and ministry out there. We have stuff from City of Joy and also from Speak I'm Listening. So there's a lot of baskets and purses, all sorts of things. So
It's beautiful
Goodies.
stuff, all handmade.
Lots of goodies.
Yeah. Would you thank all these folks here for doing a good job today? Take that. And since you've been sitting a while, why don't you